In a move that has triggered unease within international defense circles, the United States has quietly deployed 2 nuclear-powered submarines, each capable of launching strategic missile strikes into waters closely monitored by Russian naval forces. According to U.S. defense sources and maritime tracking data, the submarines involved are believed to be one Ohio-class ballistic missile submarine, SSBN, and one Virginia-class fast attack submarine, SSN, both pillars of American sea-based nuclear deterrence. These are not ordinary vessels. The Ohio class, often referred to as a boomer, carries up to 24 Trident II D5 nuclear missiles, each capable of striking targets more than 7,000 miles away, operating virtually undetectable beneath the sea. A single Ohio-class submarine has the destructive capacity to cripple an entire nation. Accompanying it is likely one of the newer Block IV Virginia-class attack submarines, designed for stealth intelligence gathering, anti-submarine warfare, and special operations support. While not a ballistic missile platform, the Virginia-class carries Tomahawk cruise missiles, advanced sonar systems, and cutting-edge counter-detection technology. Russia's response, though measured, was unmistakably firm. Within hours of confirmed U.S. submarine movement, elements of the Russian Northern Fleet began increasing activity. Borei Class ballistic missile submarines reportedly departed their home bases under radio silence. Satellite imagery suggests increased sonar surveillance activity in the Barents Sea, while long-range maritime patrol aircraft began flight patterns reminiscent of Cold War-era submarine tracking operations. The Kremlin issued a brief cryptic statement: "The strategic balance will be preserved. Any shift will be answered." No dramatic rhetoric, just quiet, deliberate escalation. The deployment of nuclear submarines is rarely a standalone act. It signals something deeper, a readiness to apply pressure silently, without the movement of carrier strike groups or loud missile tests. These submarines, stealthy, mobile, and devastating in power, represent the ultimate insurance policy in a confrontation. For the U.S., the deployment serves as a message that its nuclear deterrent is active, flexible, and forward-positioned. For Russia, it's a provocation that demands strategic counterbalance. This unfolding situation has led defense analysts to consider the broader implications. What does this say about U.S. intentions in the Arctic and North Atlantic? Is the Pentagon testing Moscow's thresholds? Or is this a contingency measure in response to internal Russian military movements? On the other side, Russia's sudden increase in naval activity and the quiet repositioning of its own nuclear assets may suggest that Moscow is preparing not only to monitor, but to match any American escalation. In the background, NATO remains watchful. Maritime surveillance flights over Norway and Iceland have increased, and reports suggest the UK's Royal Navy may have raised readiness levels for its own submarine fleet. The Cold War may be long over, but in the unforgiving, silent battle space beneath the ocean, old instincts never died. They've simply evolved. Ultimately, the deployment of 2 submarines is not just about military power. It's about signaling intent without starting a war. It's about shaping the strategic environment without a single shot fired. And it's about reminding adversaries that beneath the calm surface of diplomacy, there are systems always in motion, deep, hidden, and deadly. How far is Russia willing to push back against U.S. nuclear pressure? The Kremlin has responded with sharp precision. Without making loud threats or deploying carrier groups, Moscow has begun quietly activating the tools of strategic counterbalance. Borei and Yasin-class submarines are being repositioned. Arctic surveillance flights have increased, and electronic warfare exercises are quietly being conducted near critical NATO choke points. This is not just a symbolic gesture. This is doctrine in action. Russia's nuclear strategy has always centered on second strike capability and deniability. If provoked, Moscow won't respond with tweets or press conferences. It will respond with movement. And that's exactly what's happening now. The message from the Kremlin is chillingly simple: we see you. and we are not standing down. How far will they go? As far as it takes to ensure that no submarine, no signal, no deployment ever threatens Russia's deterrence posture. In short, Russia is already acting, not with speeches, but with steel and sonar. Moscow understands the implications of letting U.S. submarines operate unchallenged near its strategic bastions. And history has shown that when Russia feels encircled, it does not de-escalate, it hardens its posture. What threat could Trump's nuclear submarines pose to Russia? The deployment of U.S. nuclear submarines under Donald Trump's directive is not simply a flex of naval power. It represents a deep and immediate shift in strategic deterrence posture, one that directly challenges Russia's sense of military parity. These submarines are not just assets, they're silent threats, capable of altering the balance of power without ever surfacing. 1. Immediate first strike or second strike capability. The Ohio Class SSBNs are armed with up to 20 Trident 2D5 ballistic missiles, each of which can carry multiple independently targetable nuclear warheads, MIRVs. These submarines are designed to disappear beneath the oceans and remain undetectable for months, holding the capacity to eliminate entire regions in Russia within minutes. The real threat is not their presence, but the fact that they cannot be tracked. From beneath the North Atlantic or Arctic Ocean, they could launch a surprise retaliatory or even preemptive strike that Moscow would be unable to prevent or intercept. 2. Intelligent surveillance and tactical ambush. While the Ohio Class acts as the strategic deterrent, the Virginia Class attack submarines provide a more flexible tactical role. These subs can track Russian subs, monitor naval movements, and prepare ambushes against Russian vessels. They also carry Tomahawk cruise missiles capable of striking key Russian military installations, radar stations, or naval bases. The threat here is twofold. 1. Tactical pressure on Russia's northern fleet and submarine bastions in the Arctic. 2. The ability to neutralize Russian second strike capability by hunting down and potentially destroying Russian SSBNs before they can retaliate. In summary, the submarines are silent warnings. Trump's nuclear submarine deployments are not meant to start a war, but they are meant to show that the U.S. is ready for one. For Russia, the threat is not just physical. It is strategic, psychological, and systemic. The submarines challenge Russia's control of its own maritime frontiers, raise the stakes in every regional theater, and signal to Moscow that any miscalculation could be met with overwhelming, invisible force. In the deep, cold waters, where no satellite can see and no radar can reach, these submarines send a single, unmistakable message. 3. Disruption of Russia's strategic deterrence doctrine. Russia's nuclear deterrent heavily relies on the survivability of its own Borei Class submarines and land-based ICBMs. The U.S. deploying submarines near strategic maritime choke points, like the Greenland-Iceland-UK Gap or the Barents Sea, compresses Russia's maneuvering space and raises the risk that its strategic assets could be trapped or destroyed in the opening hours of a conflict. This undermines the very foundation of Moscow's escalate to de-escalate doctrine, where Russia threatens tactical nuclear use to stop a major war. If the U.S. submarines are positioned to neutralize Russia's ability to escalate, the credibility of that doctrine collapses. 4. Political and psychological pressure. Beyond the military aspect, there is a psychological game at play. Submarine deployments are not publicly announced, but when they are leaked or confirmed through satellite imagery or intentional signaling, they serve as invisible warnings. For Russia's military planners, not knowing where these submarines are or what orders they carry creates a level of uncertainty that forces caution. This slows down Russian response times, deters risk-taking, and may prevent Russia from acting decisively in other theaters like Ukraine, the Arctic, or the Black Sea.